like to welcome all present to the February 4th Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Nadia, could we please have a roll call?
Yep. Marshall Ballard,
Oh, present.
Raymond Leeson,
Here.
Marcus Simmons, Pat Darcy,
Here.
Don Black,
Here?
Ann Shout,
Here.
Karen Beatty, Sonny Aluzo,
Here.
Margie Dunn,
Here.
Travis Oakley.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Now, the first item of new business on the agenda is the Stars and Stripes 4F LLC, or request a subdivision final plan for the approval of Tyler Home and Lake Phase 9, a 46 residential plan unit development. This section of the multi-phase development is located on a combined 6.66 acres R-10A Residential District. The site is located to the south of Gracie Farms Road and to the east of Washington Post Road. Can we have a staff review, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. At this point, staff's recommendation is continue this item to our next regularly scheduled P&Z meeting that will be held on March 3rd, 2020, at 5:30 in the City Hall chambers due to some issues still working with the bond, Public Works, and the city attorney. And I understand the applicant would like to speak on that.
Okay.
Well, I'll move then that we continue this item until next meeting.
Second.
I just have a question of procedure. We can move it. I don't know, is that technically possible if the applicant wants to address us today? Can we move to continue, then have the applicant appear?
It's your meeting.
Okay. Having a motion and having a second, all those wishing to continue, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes. As a courtesy, as the applicant is here, would you please approach the podium, state your name and address, and address the board, please.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Is that about this particular issue?
I'm sorry, your
Is this
question?
about the Lake Tyler?
This is the Lake Tyler
Okay,
Entertainment.
did you not just vote to continue it?
Yes, sir. But I was told by the staff that you wished to address the board, and we
Well,
were
yeah, I
private.
did prior to you voting on this particular issue. So now my comments are going to be moot. We disagree with the position of staff, and we want to present our case to be able to move this project forward.
I was advised that the town attorney advised us to continue it, and I do not have the judgment of issues of law that they do. It's beyond my expertise, and it's issues of law concerning the bonding for your project. And I think it wiser not for us to decide on it when there is bonding issues presently. And we do invite you, any comments you have, we would entertain, and I would certainly be open to hear comments again after the legal matters are settled.
Do you have the written comments from the city attorney?
No, I do not. I was just advised not that long ago.
Sir, we submitted this project on December the 17th. As of this date, we really haven't received any feedback. I got an email from Mr. Ruggieri this afternoon at 5:05 stating that he's going to continue it until the March meeting. How am I supposed to prepare in 20 or 30 minutes for something that I didn't know about when I thought everything is in order? They've had the bond language and everything for weeks to be able to review. We got approval from Public Works on the amount weeks ago. I mean, we just got caught blindsided by this.
Sir, we are acting in good faith with you. We were advised by staff to continue it because of a bond issue.
The planning board may be acting in good faith, but I don't think the planning board is. It's been since December the 17th we submitted this, which was 7 days prior to the deadline to even submit the thing.
Well, I would like to advise you, you're addressing the Planning and Zoning Board. You might have had an issue with the Planning Department. just a matter of semantics?
I made that statement. I don't have an issue with the planning board.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Having settled with the first item of the agenda, we are now coming to the Belle Oaks II. Avolis Engineering are requesting a subdivision general plan of approval for Belle Oaks Phase 4, 6, and 7 of a proposed 102 plant unit development. This section of the multi-phase development is located on a combined 33.38 approximate acres in R8 and R-10S residential districts. The site is located on the south side of Martin Luther King Boulevard and to the east of Greenleaf Cemetary Road, located in Ward 6. Can we have the staff review on this proposal, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A great introduction. Again, the subdivision is 102 single-family residential lots, and those are detached lots. The average lot size, 5475. The project itself contemplates 13.64 acres of open space. All utilities will be provided by the city of New Bern. There's your site picture. Martin Luther King Drive is to the north. Your area zoning showing your R8 and your R10S. R8 is the darker color, R10S is the lighter color. In the middle, that the area that's already built out. The proposed general plan, your north is to the right. You'll see some new sections to the left and 2 new sections to the right. Phases 5 and 6 in front of you, showing building envelopes. Oh, man, that was me, sorry. Phase 7 to the south. Some of your site statistics showing all the statistics for the site, the building lines, typical lot sizes, lot coverages, linear feet of streets, open space. We have reviewed this general plan. The RC recommended approval of it at its January 24th meeting. The applicant has met all the requirements of 1579. Staff is recommending approval of the general plan for phases 5, 6, and 7 of Belle Oaks. I understand the applicant would like to make a presentation to the board at this time before you make your decisions or hear any public comments.
Are there any members of the board that have questions for staff?
Yeah, Jeff, I see we've got our department review comments.
Sir.
Any responses to any of those comments yet? It doesn't appear to be. It looks to be fairly new.
Yeah, no, everything was taken care of. Yes,
Okay.
sir. We got all the responses and everything was addressed. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. Mr. Ruggieri, I noticed that they are wanting to add 102 lots. That's in addition to the 80 that are already approved. That gives you 182 parcels with 1 entrance and 1 egress. That concerns me. I know we have no standards for this, but would you please bring it before the Board of Aldermen so that they can be aware of this? I think it's a problem waiting to happen, and I'm concerned about it.
Sure, Ms. Shout, at the conclusion of the meeting, if the board would like to make a motion to that effect.
May we do that now?
And, well,
You want to wait?
new business
Okay.
would be best.
All right,
And
we will
can
make
have
a motion then.
More robust discussion, we can focus on this issue right now, but absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions? At this point, I would like to invite the applicant, state your name and address at the podium, please.
Hey, good evening. My name is Joe Avolis. I'm with Avolis Engineering, and I'm also one of the developers of the property, Belle Oaks II. Which one do I push there? Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, as Jeff mentioned, I'd like to provide a presentation on our project, and these are some of the items I'd like to discuss. For the general plan, I'd like to talk about some of the history of Belle Oaks, the development. I'll hit on the zoning briefly. I know planning staff talked about it. I'll talk about our overall density. And then I know tonight we're looking a little more specifically at Phase 5. It's planned unit development. We'll discuss the open space. We'll discuss the adjoining Lakeview Estates, Lakeshore Estates subdivision to the east. Talk about stormwater drainage, wastewater, sewer. Give you a little bit of flood information, discuss traffic, and just show some pictures of some general prestige streetscapes that we have. Try this. This drawing is from Avolis Engineering's files. We were the original designer of Belle Oaks subdivision. It's kind of a small picture up there, but that's a 2002 drawing. So a few things on this drawing I'd like to discuss. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you can't see it, but in the revision block, in 2002, this project was owned by the Meadows family and had been through the department review process and was ready for the planning board approval. That's what that long square is in the upper right-hand corner. At that time, Phase 5, which is the shaded yellow, Phase 5 of what we were proposing tonight is the shaded yellow area on that map. That had 60 lots. Right above that, you'll see where I've annotated in larger text a 72-unit apartment complex. That's what was proposed on that site plan in 2002. Then over at the far bottom left-hand corner of that site, you'll see a future apartment site was also proposed. Of course, none of that happened. That was 2002, but it had gotten to the planning board. That was, at that time frame, it was somewhere at least 160 additional living units were proposed for the Belle Oaks site, and tonight we are proposing 102 single-family homes only. You'll also notice up at the top of the drawing, I've annotated in larger text where it says 2 entrances. When we went through the department review and all the conversations with the planning staff, Belle Oaks had 2 entrances. They had the one that exists today, which is in the middle of the drawing, and then it had one that was over on the right-hand side. That shows that drawing a little better. When the project came to, from the best of our recollection, when it came to the planning board meeting, there was a lot of citizens' input, and the planning board, planning staff, it all came to resolution that that second entrance would be eliminated. That was through the 10-lot Higgins Meadow subdivision that adjoins the property. And that's where that second entrance would have been. That's a photo as it exists today from the Higgins Meadow subdivision. And this is what the Belle Oaks subdivision evolved to after that event where we eliminated the second entrance. And what happened was, to the right-hand side of the photograph, the street was reconfigured a little bit, so future lots where people live now block that entrance from ever happening. So that entrance is gone. It was taken away at that time, a second subdivision entrance for that property. But it was taken away knowing that the developer had proposed a 72-unit apartment complex, an additional apartment complex, and 60 home sites. And this brings us to our general plan request that we have here tonight. We're proposing a planned unit development, just like Belle Oaks was developed as a planned unit development. And as you know, a planned unit development can have smaller lot size, but the additional area is made up in common space that everybody can use. The areas in green are all the common areas that we are proposing. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a total, and as you know, 102 lots. The first section that we would propose to construct would be down at the bottom right, which I mentioned was the 49-lot subdivision. Up in the upper right-hand corner, there's 26 lots, and that kind of provides a transition over to the commercial development on M L King Blvd, which consists of the Harbor Freight Tools and Tractor Supply. Over on the far left-hand side, we're not proposing multifamily anymore. We're proposing 27 single-family lots. Staff already talked about the zoning. I'm going to not bore you with it, but there's 2 zones out there. There's R8, which means you have to have 8,000 square feet lots or attributed area, and there's R10S. And I'll mention, as you know, the S means single family. So over approximately half of this site, we have no option but to put single family homes. All of our lots, all 102 lots that we're proposing are single family homes. If you look on the map, there's building envelopes. We're not proposing any duplexes. We're not proposing any apartments. It's all single family detached homes. Planning went through the density calculations. I'm going to hit them again real fast. This is phase 5. It's hard for me to read it, but most of that is zoned R-10S. That means we have to have 10,000 square foot per lot, or a certain amount of lot size and the same amount of common area. And what those 49 lots average is 13,500 and some change square foot. So we exceed the 10,000 square foot attributable area by 3,000 square feet in this first phase. This is phase 6, which is over there by, like I said, behind the Tractor Supply and all. And the important number to know there is 1, it's R8. You could have 8,000 square foot lots, or a combination of common area and lot to get you to 8,000. We're also at 13,500 some change there, square footage. So once again, we exceed the density requirement. And lastly, at the back of the subdivision, back near Cypress Lake, the number's a little higher. It's R8. We could have 8,000 square foot lots. Our lot size and common area together is 15,270 square feet. So we have pretty much twice as much land area by the zoning ordinance to do what we are proposing to do there. So now I'm going to address phase 5 of what we're proposing tonight in a little more detail. All of the areas shown in green, as we mentioned earlier, are common area. They're for the use of all of our lot owners. Notice that none of these new lots in this subdivision actually touch any of the existing Belle Oaks lot. All of our lot corners will be entirely on our property. The project adjoins the Lakeview and Lakeshore Estates subdivisions at the bottom of the drawing, and that's on the eastern side of the site. There's a 40-foot common area separation between the back of our lots and that existing development. The first 20 feet of that open space area closest to the existing subdivision will remain wooded, and the next 20 feet will be grassed. It'll have a natural drainage ditch that we'll construct. This is, if you look in the middle of the screen, you'll see a street stub out that was constructed. That's Rodanthe Drive. That's where our proposed one of our entrances will start. The wooded area behind the houses is where phase 5 will be constructed. If you look beyond that, you can see the existing Cypress Shores, Lakeview Estates subdivision. That road has curb and gutter, it's stubbed in, and that road was built when the original subdivision was constructed in the early 2000s. And there's another road that we're going to use, which was also constructed in the early 2000s, and that's Bogue Lane. You'll see it to the right of the White House. And there again, the wooded area is track 5, and you can see a little bit of Lakeview Estates on the right-hand side of the trees there. This is the joining Lakeview Estates subdivision to the east of our property. This is the wooded area that exists along that subdivision right now, where we will leave 40 feet of open space. The first 20 feet would be wooded. The next would be grassed. It's the same area as viewed from the air. That's Lakeview, Lakeshore Estates there, the homes. That nice row of first trees is pretty much on their property. I surveyed that back line. I know where the trees are. They have a nice line, so they have their trees, and we have our trees that we would have in addition that we would leave. Now I'd like to talk about the stormwater drainage in phase 5 specifically. Phase 5, I'll mention, was permitted fully back in the early 2000s when the rest of the subdivision was done. The water, the sewer, the stormwater, all of that was permitted. It was 60 lots. It was just never built. This is our storm drainage map, basically, and there's a stormwater pond at the top of the sheet. We'll be enlarging what's there. What's there now is very small, just to serve basically a cul-de-sac. The blue lines show our drainage routes, which consist of a combination of open ditches and pipes. The red arrows, which are hard to see, show where the water flows. And so basically, we collect all of our runoff from all of our project and send it to that stormwater pond to the north. Where it joins the Lakeview Estate subdivision, on the bottom, there's a ditch system that would collect from the back of those lots and direct it to the pond. The Lakeview Estates has a wooded line, but there's also a pretty good-sized drainage ditch there. And that drainage ditch is on that subdivision's property. It's not on our property, with the exception of about 100, 150 feet. It meanders onto our property a little bit, but we don't use it, and it's not ours. The pond at the top, like I mentioned earlier, we'll have to enlarge it to take into account this additional built-upon area. That stormwater pond will discharge to the top of the diagram there. There's a large natural branch, and it's more than adequate to handle the flow from this project. If you look carefully in that photo, you'll see the stormwater pond that's out there. It's small. It just had to be partially constructed to fulfill the permit requirements when that last little cul-de-sac was built in Belle Oaks originally. We'll be enlarging it to more of an amenity, and of course, to meet the city of New Bern stormwater requirements, it's got to buffer the peak flows and take care of the quality, et cetera. I'll mention that Belle Oaks, I worked on a lot of projects in the past 31 years in New Bern. The conditions on Belle Oaks for development and stormwater are exceptional. Very sandy soils, low groundwater table, the easiest site to work with that I've probably ever worked with in my career. This is where the stormwater pond eventually drains to. This is Morris Branch along it would have been at the top of the drawing there. It's more than adequate, natural, wide drainage branch. Eventually leads to Wilson Creek and to the Trent River. I mentioned a minute ago about how good the drainage conditions were on Belle Oaks. This is the back of the Tractor Supply project that borders our Phase 6. I designed that drainage system for Tractor Supply over 10 years ago. That pond, it's not a pond, it's an infiltration basin. And I can count the number of infiltration basins in eastern North Carolina I've been able to design on one hand in the past 31 years. The pond was designed to stay dry, captured the entire 10-year storm, and you can see right now it's dry. So that tells you how good the drainage conditions are right up there in that area. This is, through consultation with the city engineer, we kind of identify what we were worried would be a water pressure and flow concern early on with the public water system out there as we added lots. So we talked to Jordan Hughes, and we looked at a couple different ways to extend water to the site, and we finally come up with running a new additional water tap out to M L King Blvd, adjacent to the Tractor Supply property. And we've secured easement permission for that, and so that will be constructed to keep water pressures and flows high in the subdivision. This is a sewage vacuum station that's right outside the entrance road to Belle Oaks. I also talked with the city engineer early on because we wanted to identify what utility issues we had, and he looked at the pumping information, the run times in this vacuum station, and determined that it's more than adequate to handle additional flow associated with our 102 lots. Now I'd like to just, we don't have any flooding issues, but I'd like to address them since Hurricane Florence isn't too far in our rearview mirror. But this is a copy of the flood map. It's current right now. You'll see over on the left-hand side of the photograph that the 100-year flood elevation, the base flood, is 9.8 feet up here because it's up a stream. And Belle Oaks, our lots, the lowest ones start at about 16 feet and go up to about 20. So we're 6 feet plus above the 100-year flood elevation. And you'll note I just looked out of interest to see the single entrance road into Belle Oaks, what the elevation is there. I know they had some culvert washout issues during Hurricane Florence, but I'm going to tell you, I know a lot of culverts that failed during Hurricane Florence, and that road is at elevation 15.5 plus or minus, so it's 5 or 6 feet above the 100-year flood elevation. So now I would like to address traffic in the area and the existing Belle Oaks subdivision, talk about that a little bit. That's just the tax map version of the Belle Oaks subdivision. It's not very clear, but Belle Oaks, in not a negative sense, but is a dead-end neighborhood. When you get there, you can't go anywhere else. You're coming home. There's no through traffic that comes through Belle Oaks. Access out of the neighborhood is good. Once you clear the entrance road, you can go 3 different directions. You can get to a city light. You can take a quick ride on MLK, or you can cut through Trent Woods. So there's plenty of ways to go. This is the traffic circle where you come into Belle Oaks. The entrance road is at the upper left-hand corner of that photo. And that the city was very big on these years ago, and they're nice. They like to call them a traffic calming device because it slowed people. Instead of having a long entrance road with a throughway, you had a traffic circle. There are 2 of these traffic circles in Belle Oaks. And that one there, when all the traffic comes in that front entrance road in the upper left, it hits that traffic circle and it gets distributed in 3 directions. This is the entrance road coming into Belle Oaks. It's actually looking out, but that road's 27 feet wide. It's a very wide road. Typical interior subdivision street. The typical city 31-foot back-to-back, which means that the asphalt's 26 feet wide. Then you have the 2-foot concrete gutters on each side. So you've got very ample streets out there for traffic. We took a sampling of the traffic at the entrance area of the subdivision on a normal Friday morning. I made sure that school was in session. It wasn't a holiday. And we went out there and we looked at traffic. We said, we'll look at it between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. And we'll look at it in 15-minute increments and count it. And then I'll take the 4 15-minute increments that are consecutive, and I'll say that's the peak flow in this sampling, and this way we did it. You'll see the entrance road is on the left-hand side of that aerial photograph. In the morning, the peak 1-hour traffic volume on the 27-foot wide entrance road was 42 cars. That's 1 car every 1 minute and 25 seconds on the entrance road. The rest of the diagram, the other numbers, 10, 14, and 18, just show where that traffic went after it came in or as it, where it originated from. But we went back. We went back that same Friday afternoon between 4 and 6 p.m., and we had more traffic. So if you look at that right there, you'll see the entrance is oriented the same way over there on the left as the entrance road. And we used the same method. We looked at 15-minute increments, and the peak 1-hour flow continuous was 75 vehicles per hour in 1 hour, or 1 vehicle every 48 seconds on the entrance road. 1 vehicle every 48 seconds. So we had more traffic on the Friday afternoon. At other times, I've been out in the subdivision. I've been doing a lot of surveying out there. And, of course, once you get away from the peak hours, subdivisions, there's no traffic out there. It's typical of all residential neighborhoods. And the neighborhood benefits, once again, from being a dead-end neighborhood, not a negative connotation. And there's no commercial uses in there. There's no through traffic. So traffic is light there. The peak numbers are there, but they're not. That's the peak is 1 vehicle in 48 seconds. By comparison, this is Cypress Shore's entrance road. It's 20 feet wide. Remember, our entrance road at Belle Oaks is 27 feet. Right there where all that mud is on the right, that's my office. Okay? That's Print-elect does that, but that's okay. They clean it up once in a while. It's 20 foot wide. This is the Cypress Shore subdivision. If you'll look up there, you'll see that it's kind of hard, but I've identified the 20-foot entrance road again, where it is. My office is up there. Then if you'll see that other number that I did, Cypress Shores has 189 lots. I counted them all. That includes my office, Print-Elect, and Belle Oaks, when it's fully built out with what we are proposing tonight, is 182 lots. 7 lots less than Cypress Shores subdivision. Long, straight entrance road, no traffic circle. And I've been at that office location for 25 years now, and I have not experienced any traffic concerns there.
How many acres between those two?
I don't know what the Cypress Shores acreage is, man.
I can assure you they're probably a little bit bigger than the ones in Belle Oaks, but we'll continue. Go ahead.
So Belle Oaks is a beautiful neighborhood. That is why we as developers are willing to invest in the area. You know, we have a interest in keeping the neighbors' property values high because I want to keep my property values high too. Where they may have one house, I have 102 lots where I need to keep my values high. So we're committed to going out there and building a good product. We're not looking to build starter homes. We hope to be able to work with one builder, kind of have a theme, and take things to a little extra measure to make it nice to keep our values high, and that will hopefully help everyone else. So if y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
I have a question. You gave us the stats of the traffic coming in and out of there now, one every 48 seconds.
Peak in the afternoon.
In that peak time. But now you're going to double or maybe more than double traffic coming out of there, so that number now is a good number. But now if you're going to grow it twice over, that traffic kind of concerns me. And why are the new lots so much smaller than the old lots?
Well, that's what, to get our density up and to then have a planned unit development where we have more common area. You have a smaller lot, but the usable area that each homeowner has by way of common area, instead of just we could go out there and make the lots bigger. We could make them longer in the back and it'd still be the same thing. But we have the common area through planned unit development concept, which the city has been big on ever since I moved here in 1989. Now all those homeowners have use of all that common area, the lake, the areas in the back of the lots, and they're not confined to their little rectangle of land. So it's a decision we made as just a developer and the product we want to put out there.
Well, as it sits now, it is a very pretty subdivision. I've sold property in it. It is very pretty. But it looks to me like you're going to change the appearance of it with these new phases. No?
Well, I'm not sure we're going to change the appearance of their neighborhood, or ours is just going to be a little bit different. Where, the existing subdivision has a lot of, the homes are nice, and what I did notice is the lots are wider, but if you also look, the homes are a lot wider. Mm-hmm. And if you look between them, there really isn't that much space between some of the homes out there. Mm-hmm. So if we build a wider lot, we build a wider home.
So what's going to be the minimum square footage on these smaller lots for the houses?
We're probably going to be in the 2,000 square foot range.
And what's on the lots right now?
Do what?
The houses that are on the lots right now, aren't they about 2,000 or 2,200?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Small.
We have to, in order to make this a viable development project for us, we can't build small homes. We can't build a cheap product. We've got to have our values high, and ours might just look a little different than theirs. But I think ours in the end will look nice.
And you said flood elevation where it is now is 16 feet?
No, the flood elevation is 9.8 feet.
In this subdivision?
Yeah, in Morris Branch. Yeah, it's on the flood map. Put it up there. And the land where we're doing, like for instance, Phase 9, the elevations start at 16, the low point. So we're not in the floodplain on any of this project.
Will the new streets be the same width as the existing streets right now?
Yes,
cul-de-sacs, everything the same?
Correct. They meet the city standards, yes.
That's what's there.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other?
Yeah. Joe, is Morris Branch a primary floodway? I mean, it's a floodway, is that?
Well, it is a floodway, yes. It's
Okay.
a floodway because you saw the blue and white hatching, and that designates it a floodway. So what we see there is where if you get downstream in Wilson Branch, your base flood elevation is 8 feet because it's in the blue blob.
Right.
When you start to get upstream, they do sections, and that's why it's higher
Right.
than what you see out in Trent
Yep,
River.
I'm with you. So the mapping you showed was current mapping.
Yes, right.
Is the mapping that's going to take effect in the summer, this year, June, I guess it is? Is
Yeah,
that,
it'd
you
go up.
evaluated that?
The flood elevation would go up approximately 1 foot. I'm not sure what it is there, but there again, it's not an issue for us. We're so far above it. And then the entrance road, like I said, it's 5.5 feet approximately. Of the other
And that's the AE, so nothing also in the yellow 500 year, right?
Yeah, we're not in the, AE, that's right, yeah.
AE is the one that has base flood elevation.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
the
correct terminology.
yellow on the flood mapping is the 500 year, and
Yeah,
nothing 500 year either?
Right, all I really wanted to show is that flood zone's not an issue to us at all.
Okay, that's good.
Not
All the roads in the picture that you showed, I didn't see any cross sections of roads in here, which is not a problem, but they all have curb and gutter, and the
Yes, sir.
intent is for all
That's
new
right.
roads to have
Correct.
curb and gutter? Okay.
Sir, I had a question. You were talking about earlier, you mentioned the entrance into the Belle Oaks community as it sits right now. I know you kind of touched on it, but that road going into Belle Oaks during the heavy rains of Florence, that road did wash out. So you kind of touched on it, but you kind of skirted it a little bit. I do want to make the point. I do know for a fact that that road did wash out.
Did it wash completely out?
Half of it, yes.
Half of it. Okay.
Yeah. So I just
I knew
just
there was
want to
some
make that
issues
noted
with it.
that was an issue during Florence. That road was the one way in, one way out, and half of it washed out.
Yeah,
Because
is that's city controlled road, is that correct?
That's correct. The city
subdivision
maintained.
control. Okay.
So you touched on the traffic, but you never really, what do you anticipate with the addition of these lots? How will the traffic be affected?
not tripping.
That's easy. If you got 80 already and you're looking to put 102.
102 homes, you figure 2 cars per, that's 204 additional cars at a minimum.
You don't know when.
And how many
they're
car
coming out.
trips a day do they make?
Did you take an
What's that?
educated
And how many
guess as
car trips a day do
How
they
often they
make?
would go in and out?
Well, you have, what you say in there now, 80 lots, and there's, at the peak in the afternoon on that one day was one every 48 seconds. So if we've got a little more than that, I would just take a guess and say, let's prorate it and look at it, maybe one car every 15 to 20 seconds at the peak 1 hour time frame. But I put this slide back up here because this is the traffic circle. So when traffic comes in the entrance road at the upper left, it gets distributed in 3 directions. And at the top right-hand photo is where our Phase 6 is going, and one of the entrances to our Phase 5. And then the bottom right road, that's another entrance to our Phase 5. And then bottom left, that goes to the property down by Cypress Lake, which is 27 lots. So our development is in kind of 3 different directions at that traffic circle. So it's going to go different ways.
That goes to.
The one that's get impacted the most is the
Does that go
entrance
out
road,
to MLK?
which is the entrance road.
Okay. So there's no light at the end of that.
Sir?
At the end of that road, there's no light. It doesn't go out to MLK.
No, that's correct. Yeah, we don't have control of any of that property that goes to MLK Boulevard. And a lot of it's actually blocked by the private drive now for Tractor Supply.
I did have a question, if you could go, it's probably back up a couple of slides, but you were talking about the common areas, you had them highlighted in green.
Yes, sir.
Could you touch on those a little bit and kind of expand what the plan is for those exactly? Is that just going to be like open space, or are you going to put walking trails in there? What's the plan for that?
Down at the bottom, we have a requirement that we have to leave a 20-foot buffer there in addition to the open space, because that's a planned unit development requirement. So we're leaving trees there, and where there's not adequate trees, we'd have to plant something there. And then over in the triangle over in the far left, that's just going to be all trees. The rest of the other places where there's trees now, we're leaving them, and well, not entirely, but it's going to be grass, and some of it will be trees. And then where it says open space in the big green area in the middle, that's going to be the detention pond, which will be enlarged. So It'll be, people can walk around, it'll be maintained, whatever the homeowners association, how they would maintain it, and then also whatever else we have in the open spaces will be a lot dependent on the builder we end up selecting and some agreement we have with them, if they can provide any side amenities, walking trails or what
Yeah,
have
because
you.
if you don't have that, then you defeat the purpose of what you stated earlier. They have open spaces other than the triangle they live in or the rectangle. Because
Right.
if it's not usable open spaces for ball games or playing or whatever, if it's, a pond.
Well, that will be up to the homeowners association. Will have to maintain it. When we walk away from it, that's how to be left, because we're going to clear it to build the homes, put the utilities in, and when we put it back, it'll be grassed. It'll have to be grassed. We have to stabilize it, and and we'll own that property for a while. No telling how long as it's being built. So we'll be the ones maintaining it, cutting the grass, and making sure that all goes.
So will you stay a part of this until it gets to a percentage of build out, 75% or 50% build out before you pull it?
We will have to, because there will always be issues coming up, and until it's turned over to the HOA, it's the developer's responsibility. So that's we'll keep the grass mowed, and I've got a son that does landscaping, so we got it covered. Yeah.
Is there a possibility with respect to moving Phase 7 and limiting the number of plots to 100 as opposed to 102?
What'd you say about Phase 7?
I understand there was discussions about you might be able to reduce it to 100 instead of 102 lots.
I've revisited that, and that's, I like that idea, but the problem is that we spend a lot of money front end developing this project, and those last 2 lots come at the end where maybe we'll make some money at the very end. So I really think what we're proposing, I didn't mention earlier, but I looked at the density calculations when you go through all of it and average them, weighted average on all 3 sections, we end up with the equivalent of 1/3 of an acre per lot. And so we're well below the density that our zoning gives us the opportunity to do here. So unless there's some ordinance requirement that keeps us from having 102 lots, we feel like we have a viable plan. Not saying that when we get into Phase 7, we realize that, hey, guess what? We can't get 26 or 7 lots in here, whatever it is, and we just have to give them up. That may come at that time as we look at it further. But I think we're so far okay with the density that we're kind of happy where we are. And I think I've addressed the traffic issues pretty thoroughly. One entrance road doesn't concern me. There's one entrance road in many projects around New Bern. Let's talk about Craven Forest. For years has been one entrance road, and there's many more. Cypress Shores. Like I said, the road's high. Half of it washed out in Hurricane Florence. Hey, guess what? My whole house is surrounded by water in Hurricane Florence. And if half the road, if I had to get out of Belle Oaks and half the road was gone, I certainly can walk out if I need to. It's not that far. So the entrance road conditions don't concern me at all.
Well, with covering impervious surface, when you're looking at a smaller lot versus what's there now, and if the houses there now are 1,800 square foot, and you're thinking 2,000, aren't we going to limit how much we can really put on those smaller lots? Because you're only allowed so much to cover with impervious surface.
Our impervious numbers for our pond, our detention pond is designed for the impervious areas that we will have on the lot. They're all made clear in the calculations. How much square footage per lot includes the driveway, sidewalk, patio in the back, the garage. It's typically all itemized in there. So we know, and it's also covered in your protective covenants, that the maximum impervious area per lot is there. So that's how that's addressed. So, you have a room over the garage, there's your extra square footage, where maybe another house didn't.
Are there any other questions from members of this board for the applicant? Having heard none, we will be limiting public comment to 4 minutes per speaker. Anybody in the public that would like to speak in favor of this project, please come to the podium, state your name, and make your statement, please. Having seen nobody want to speak in favor of the project, the proposed project, all those against the approval of this project, please step to the podium, state your name and address, and we welcome your comments.
Yes, Bobby West, 206 Fishing Creek Drive. Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. As I said, my name is Bobby West. I come before you tonight to explain why Belle Oaks zoning issue is so important and needs to be reconsidered for the amount of growth. I understand that growth is inevitable. The residents understand that growth is inevitable. Our concerns are that if approved, these new zoning allowances will lead to the characteristics of Belle Oaks subdivision, which we all moved to, will be changed forever. The original plans drew residents to settle in Belle Oaks are not being honored. We were originally told there would be larger houses, larger lots. Additionally, it would create a dangerous atmosphere and create undue stress on the city's infrastructure. Why we chose the community. My wife and I chose this community in 2005 as a place to buy a lot, build a house, and remain in New Bern because we were attracted to the quietness of the neighborhood, the peace and serenity of the area, and the convenience to what the city has to offer. We were made aware of future plans, as I said, of larger lots and more houses. This is what we, as well as other residents, were told. Had we known the eventual plans would be several more neighborhoods with 180 more homes, we would decline and move to the county, even though we wanted to live in the city. All of the Belle Oaks residents feel the same way. We were enamored with the growing community of Belle Oaks and thought it personified the very essence of life in New Bern. The characteristics of our neighborhood. The community of Belle Oaks possesses many of them. Children can still play and walk to a friend's house without fear of harm. The streets are not covered with crowded traffic. A community where there are no strangers and everyone helps everyone else in times of need. Currently, there are 65 houses with 80 lots total. Again, reasonable growth. The neighborhood has been established for 15 years without any issues or unexpected growth. This neighborhood is a reflection of New Bern and the way of life the city of New Bern wishes to reflect. Plans and understanding have changed. With the recent upswing of the housing market, old plans and understandings have changed for what we were led to believe. We understand that the opportunity for developers to increase their profit margins. We understand the potential for the city to increase its tax base. We understand that the plan is to add 100 new homes in addition to the existing 80. Potential dangers. There is one way in and one way out. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel from the Highway Patrol, served 30 years. I've dealt with traffic for 34 years. That's a major concern to me. This causes evacuation issues and concerns, such as the road that washed out halfway through during Hurricane Florence. In addition to the backside neighborhood, and I'm sure that the floodplain map shows one thing, it was a river on the backside. A river, it looked like the Neuse River flowing through the backside of the neighborhood. Off the road, it wasn't on the road, but it was in potential building lots. Narrow roads coming off 117, off US 17, coming through the other neighborhood, it widens, as the gentleman said, to 28 feet, 27 feet, but then you have a choke point when you get to the roundabout. It narrows back down, which causes issues. The next 36 months would pose a large risk to residents due to the increase in construction traffic. This traffic would be dangerous, menacing to children waiting for school buses, residents walking their children, and many other activities. It would be out of control. With just a few houses that have been recently built, there have been near misses to pedestrians almost being struck, damage to the infrastructure at Belle Oaks, trash, drug activity, and other issues that did not exist. City concerns. The city's infrastructure would be taxed greatly on the roadway and keeping up the roads. More police officers will be needed if you add 200 homes, almost 200. More firefighters will be needed. More EMS personnel will be needed to save the lives of those who were struck and killed by the people who are trying to use this roadway. This puts a drain on the city's already stretched in resources to provide these services in other sections of the city, which unfortunately have fell victim to the issues we're facing. What needs to be done? The original plans and agreements should be honored, as we were told. That's why we bought there. Need for a professional impact study on the effects of exploding this community beyond reasonable limits. A need for a professional traffic study to be conducted by an unbiased entity. A need to look at potential of any environmental issues or fallout. Possible solutions to these issues: scale back the number of new homes and builds, which will lessen the threat. Perform studies to do due diligence when impacting lives. Study road infrastructure to determine the long-term cost. Study the impact on city services to determine the true impact to the city. Study the feasibility of adding an additional road to ease the issues and concerns of traffic. In conclusion, as stated earlier, there were no plans originally that we were made aware of years ago. This would potentially eliminate the community in which New Bern prides itself on having the hometown atmosphere. It would create a dangerous climate. In 34+ years of public service, I have had to pick up the shoes of children from the street after they were struck and killed. I've listened to loved ones cry and moan for help as I've had to deliver the death message and news to these families that have learned their loved ones have passed because some errant driver. No return on investment, profit margin, or tax basis work these outcomes. We understand that growth is inevitable, taxes raised, and problems are always going to exist. We just hope that this planning board will take the time to consider all of the factors involved and make a decision which will be amicable for all and maintain the integrity of the city and make us all proud.
Thank
we
you.
all have the opportunity to get it right by doing our due diligence before we move forward.
Thank you. With the next speaker. Please state your name and address before the
My name
board.
is Sarah Oglesby, and I live at 313 Belle Oaks Drive. And I just wanted to bring up the point of the common areas. I, second many of Bobby's comments about the neighborhood.
Can you please move your microphone close? Thank you.
Okay, is that better?
Thank
Okay,
you.
sorry. Growth is inevitable. We're not opposed to growth. We just want to make sure it's done right. With regard to the common areas, I think that the initial map that was put up there of the original Belle Oaks development and all of the green space was very misleading. Most of that space is not usable and it's not accessible. It's not open space for the community. My husband and I moved into the development 14 years ago. We were promised all this open space for children to play and even a playground. That never happened. As you can see in the packet that you were given, most of the common space is not usable. It's overgrown. It's behind homes. That 20-foot area that Mr. Avolis was talking about on the current development is a drainage ditch. My children can't play baseball in a drainage ditch, so that's not open space. So I think that the current map that he has up there, while it does have a lot of green space and it says open space, there's going to be a large part of that open space on the top right-hand side is going to be a holding pond. While people can walk around the holding pond, that doesn't leave a lot of open space for children to run and play. Small children who are going to play in their backyards and front yards, obviously under the watch of their parents, will be very close to open water. That is a concern. On the bottom left, that open space that is, a large triangle area, how are folks going to get to that? Are they going to walk through their neighbors' backyards, side yards to get to that space to play? And again, the 20-foot area that he was talking about, concerned that it's just going to be trees or a drainage ditch. So again, not necessarily opposed to the growth of the community. Again, we've been here 14 years. It has grown significantly. We have wonderful neighbors. We would love to have more wonderful neighbors. We just want to make sure everything is done right on the front end.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the board.
My name is Anthony Montero, and I live at 403 Kinnikeet Lane. I actually live on the end of the development that is seeing a lot of new construction over the summer. That's been a big issue for us. One thing that I noticed, and I wanted to make a counterpoint to the production that we just saw, the day that they did the impromptu traffic report seemed to be very quiet as far as construction. There are, I think, 4 houses being developed right now next to mine, and nobody was working on that Friday. It wasn't a holiday, so I'm not sure what was going on. I'm not sure if that was something that was coordinated by the developer to make it look like there was less traffic, but that's something that needs to be looked at in depth, not just the traffic from the current residents, but the traffic from the construction vehicles that are constantly in and out of there. The other thing I wanted to point out is that this feels like a classic bait and switch. I think everybody here invested in a property, and we expected that if there was more development, those properties would be in line with what we purchased and what we invested our livelihoods into. And this is not that. It seems like the developer wants to divvy up these lots and make them as small as possible so that they can profit as much as possible. And he's forsaken everybody that's already invested in his development. So it needs to be looked at, and we need to consider everybody that's already living there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for your time.
Please state your name
My
and
name's
address for the board, please.
John Lynch. I live at 300 Fishing Creek Drive, and I will say I'm a native to New Bern. I've been here my whole life. Our neighborhood of Belle Oaks was hit hard during Hurricane Florence, and as we've all said, we have one entrance in and out, and it was flooded. And I don't mean like halfway flooded. It was completely washed out. We were trapped in there for, I believe it was a day and a half. We now have builders building new homes on lots that were flooded during Florence, and I know this because I was there during Florence, and I walked the neighborhood to make sure my neighbors if they needed help, if anybody was stuck, if anybody was in a jam. And I actually happened to go down that back road because I knew there's about 2 people that have lived back there. And when I was walking back there, I noticed those new lots that the builders right now are breaking ground on were actually flooded, despite what any map will show you or engineer or somebody with 30 years of experience. If they weren't there, I mean, that map doesn't make, that doesn't have any validity in my point. Our developers constructed and ran our HOA for the last 16 years. They stipulated what kind of fence you could have, if it was wood, if it was metal, if it was white, or if it was brown. They also said you couldn't have boats in your driveway, yet they left out a major part that all of HOAs have, and that's a guideline on what can be built. Our first and original phase are all homes built on crawl spaces on a minimum of 1/4 acre. For the remaining lots they have been building on the past year, it has been carte blanche, and the builders were told by the developers that they can build homes on slabs. So after 16 years of having homes the same style and characteristics, we now have crawl space homes sandwiched between slab homes, which also create a problem for water runoff into the neighbors' yards. This is a bait and switch, as most of us feel, and I question the ethics of the developers and builders in our neighborhood. I think the board should take a deep dive into this. We are not anti-growth, and we welcome newcomers into our community with open arms. We just ask if you're going to continue building to maintain a minimum of our current 1/4 acre standard. And one thing I'd like to say also on the green spaces, it's not that phase, it's the last phase where the gentleman was saying we had all this great open green space. That great open green space is that one right there, where it says R8. From there to the wetlands is about I'd say a basketball court-sized swamp with water moccasins, snapping turtles. So unless your kids like playing with that kind of stuff, I don't think that's something our neighbors are really going to enjoy. So I don't know if that's going to be a good selling feature for them. But that's all I have to say, and I appreciate your guys' time, and I hope you look into this further.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Kelly Michaud, and I reside at 303 Belle Oaks Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time and your attention. We appreciate the fact that you're asking questions and looking at the detail. That means a lot to us. Probably should have mentioned early on, but the people present in this room, although we've tried to be very cautious and timeful of mindful of your time. The people in this room, if you ask them to show their hands, obviously are all here not in favor of this development as it stands now. As it's been stated, we are not about trying to stop development. We understand that that's going to happen. We actually want to have community. We want to have families. We want to have the Belle Oaks that has been consistent with all of the development that has been presented to us and built by numerous builders, the Belle Oaks Phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe there were 6 different builders that took place in that. But they were able to keep the house consistent with each other. And there was an opportunity for the community to be a community. The lot sizes currently range from 0.24 to 0.35 in Belle Oaks, the lots 1 through 80. The lots being proposed in Phase 5, 6, and 7 start now with the plan that has been revised since November at 0.13. That is a huge difference. That's not a little difference. That's not one lot's a little bigger than the other. And I believe there are only 4 lots that even tip 0.20, and they're the ones that kind of fall to the cul-de-sac where there's a bit of an angle. I'm not good with geometry, but maybe a trapezoid type piece at the end. So again, we are asking for you to help us maintain Belle Oaks to the integrity and to the community that it currently is. We're concerned about all the things that have already been talked about, so I'm not going to go over common space and traffic and all of those things again. But think about driveways. Think about parking on the street. If there are lots of this small, how are they going to be able to park 2 vehicles and move their vehicles around on the streets? There are all sorts of things that are big to us as a community. And I know they may sound minor, but they are not. We also have a community that has a real wide demographic. We have everything from retirees to people with new babies, as you hear, in the neighborhood. And we have a mix of people, and we love that about Belle Oaks. Our desire is not to change the community, but it is to have the community join us. And we really look forward to working with people, welcoming people into our families, because Belle Oaks is a family. You see this. This is a family. This isn't just a bunch of houses that are put together in one area. The last thing I wanted to mention is regarding safety. We are greatly concerned about the construction vehicles, about that type of thing, and I am looking forward to being able to work with the builders and the developers with those issues. But we have several children in our community that are handicapped, from special needs with autism, with children in wheelchairs. We need to make sure that we are mindful. When those school buses are coming and picking up and they're taking longer times, all of these things need to be considered. We thank you for your time. We ask that you think seriously about some of the issues. Give us a traffic study. Give us some of these studies to make sure this is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Katie Mock, and I live at 300 Fishing Creek. I had this wonderful thing written that I was going to read to you tonight, but I feel like most of the things that I was going to say have already been said. But I do want to speak from a perspective that I live in the first house when you come in the main entrance. So I got to experience firsthand all the construction traffic, the dump trucks, and everything that has been coming through our neighborhood for the past almost year in just the construction of 6 new homes. That's just 6. The proposal is well more than that. And it is frustrating because we do have a traffic circle that's one way. We even have designated signs that say one way. And unfortunately, a lot of the dump trucks and construction vehicles go the opposite way. I don't know about how long that this is delegated to go on for with the construction of the amount of phases that we have. It could last for years. And it is a concern because I do have an infant. I can hear her screaming now in protest. And anyway, so I am concerned, being a parent of a young child and the other children that live in our neighborhood, about their safety, as the people that tend to come in with the construction crews don't have as much care for our neighborhood as we do when we drive in and out. We obey the laws. We obey even the litter laws. We're not tossing beer cans and Pepsi bottles. We constantly are policing the front end of our neighborhood to make sure that the wetlands are taken care of, because we do have a wide variety of wildlife, and unfortunately none of them are endangered, which I was hoping I could say that we have an endangered species to protect our wetlands and protect our woods. But unfortunately I present you with nothing as far as that goes. But I am concerned for their care and their well-being during this construction period, because as my neighbors and friends have mentioned, we're not opposed to the building and making Belle Oaks a bigger family, because we are a family, as everybody has stated, and we love our neighbors, and we want to continue to see Belle Oaks thrive. But we want to do it in the right way and do our due diligence and just make sure that all these thoughts are in our minds before we break ground and start really tearing up the trees that were already affected by Hurricane Florence. I mean, we are still seeing the destruction in the woods and the wetlands that surround our neighborhood that made it the peaceful gem that it is. So I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Cedars, and I live at 203 Belle Oaks Drive. We were one of the first families to move into our drive, or into our neighborhood. And over the past 17 years or so, we've raised a daughter, along with a lot of other newly graduates from New Bern High School, that were able to play outside and play freely outside without a worry or without a care. Or if they felt threatened, if they felt scared, they could go to a neighbor's house and get help. And that is something that is just, you don't find that anywhere, and that is what we have in Belle Oaks still today. That is what I think we're trying to maintain in Belle Oaks. We don't mind the growth. We've seen growth over this 17 years, but it's been done in a thoughtful way. It's been done in a planned way. It's been done in a way that really incorporates what we have and what we want to become. So just because we have all of those things and they're within the guidelines and they're within the rules doesn't necessarily make it right and the right thing for our neighborhood and our families. The last thing that I want to let you, that I want to speak on is my son is one of our neighbors that is in a wheelchair. He is 13 years old. He has grown up in this neighborhood. We have been able to live in this neighborhood as a family with a son that needs these special arrangements. We have ramps going out the back end in our garage to be sure that we can get him in and out of the house. I want to make sure that if anything needs to come into the neighborhood to save him, has the opportunity to reach our house. With the one in, one way out, that is a concern for me. With the increased traffic, that is a concern for me. No, he doesn't play in the road. No, he's not outside a whole lot. But he does have a friend that he does like to go see, and he does like to play with, and she likes to come and play with him too. They should have the same opportunity as our children that have grown up before them were able to run back and forth and play at each other's houses. We have that now. If we are going to do what is proposed, we'll lose that. And that is not about profit. It's not about quantity. It's not about money. It's about quality. And I think that's really what we have to look at tonight is quality. Our neighborhood is a picture-perfect neighborhood of what New Bern's all about. And I think that we're all here tonight trying to fight that it stays that way. We want to grow. We don't mind growing, but we need to do it in a very careful way that's going to make it right for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Diane Bond. I live at 106 Bells Way. I apologize, I had not planned to speak tonight, but I have several of my neighbors that live on Bells Way, and we are here to support everybody in Belle Oaks. And then also, this development affects us too. When you come off of 17, on River Road, we are the first left, the first paved left, before you hit the road going into Belle Oaks. Regarding the flooding, my backyard flooded during Florence. My backyard butts up to the wooded area that as you're coming into Belle Oaks, the wooded area to your left before you actually hit that circle. My backyard butts up to that. There is a retaining pond in that wooded area. I have lived there since 2008, and my backyard has flooded twice. And of course, the road going was almost completely torn out. The concern we have, of course, is not only how the construction is going to affect our road in addition to Belle Oaks. Some of my neighbors live on the other side of the road, and the construction that's going on right on the 17 front has affected their backyard with standing water in their backyard. And also, the River Road coming off of 17 is an extremely narrow road. We have to, especially on Thursdays when people put their trash cans out, those people that live on that road don't have any extra space to put their trash cans and recycle bins, and we literally have to come to a stop and let people pass by for two cars to go next to each other. And with all of the additional traffic, that's an extreme concern. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Bill Long. I'm an old country boy that grew up in the swamps of Brunswick County. I'm old, I'm tired, and I'm worried. In 2016, my health got bad. I had to move to New Bern to be close to my son. We bought the house on Lakeshore Drive. We've enjoyed it. It's peaceful and quiet, good neighbors. We know each other. We look out for one another. It's what we were looking for. We prayed about it. Lord led us here. He even showed my wife in a dream the house plan down to a gnat's heel. So we know we belong there. We moved here in good faith. New Bern has a reputation of preserving and protecting what's here. I spend hours each week helping maintain the battlefield and at Moore Oliver House. So I'm helping preserve what's here. I'm old, I'm ugly, and I need y'all to preserve me. I need you to look out for me. Now, I want to say something about the property itself. I walk through Belle Oaks every day. I don't get shot. I walk through, enjoy it. Neighbors speak to me. On the way out, where the entrance is, it goes through that swamp. Sounds like a waterfall right now with all the debris over there for those blowed down trees from the past hurricane. Next bad hurricane, she's going to back up. On the left side from the entrance, where the sewer station is, all the way in down to the cemetery, the back side of the cemetery, that swamp is full of downed trees. And it's going to back up. There's a sewer line that goes right by that entrance. The next time that water backs up, it's going to take that sewer line out. That sewer line goes through my yard. And if that thing backs up and blows there, it's going to blow in my yard because it's a vacuum system. And I don't want sewage blowed up all over my house. So I'm asking y'all to please sit down with the developer and work this thing out so you can help him make some money and help us to be calm and protected of where we are. Y'all got a decorated veteran of World War II that flew 29 different kinds of aircraft. During the war, you got him worried, and he's 97 years old. There's a widow of a vet that received a presidential citation in Vietnam. She's here, she's worried. The neighbor down the street just lost her husband, decorated veteran. She's worried. I'm asking y'all to sit down look carefully at what you got here and work it out for everybody. Now, we can all be neighbors and do good for everybody. Thank you.
I'm Nellie Thalman at 5001 Lakeshore Drive, and you say, well, what are you doing here? Well, I live on the lake, and several years back, this little boy was drowned, and just so sad. It's 30-some feet deep. My children measured it. I love New Bern, and I think you're a grand group of people sitting up there because you're giving up time that you could be home watching television and drinking beer. And you are concerned about New Bern. It's a wonderful place. And the people at Belle Oaks are behind us, and we were a little anxious when they started building over there. But they are the grandest group of people. They have just, I was concerned about them and that lake, to tell you the truth. But they are good parents, and they've kept their children away from it. I'm serious. I don't want to live through. In fact, I had to leave home that day. My heart was so broken. I taught your children for 30 years, and I loved every one of them. And I do think it's a dangerous place. And I just, with all those houses crammed together, those children are going to be looking for a place to have fun. And that lake is just not a good place to be. So, again, thank you for being the wonderful people that you are and for giving your time and your effort to our lovely city.
Thank you.
My next door neighbor, John Ives, was the first man to build out there. He told me one day, he said, "Bill, did you know right over there they had a big fight during the Civil War?" I said, "No." He said, "I found stuff all around here." He said one day they were over at the drive-in where it was, back in those trees before they grew up. He said they saw something shiny in the dirt and they started digging, and they dug up a live cannonball. And I just wonder, has anybody thought about that? Look at the old maps and check that property and go in there and especially check for live ammo. That cannonball, had it gone off, it would have killed a bunch of people. And that's not the only one that's been found in this area. So just a word of caution.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jane Gordon. I'm from the law firm of Kirkman Whitford in Morehead City, and I'm here on behalf of the Belle Oaks homeowners. And they obviously are their own best advocates. You've heard a lot here on a lot of different issues of why the proposed plan would be problematic from a number of perspectives. I listened carefully to what the applicant had to say, and what I heard from him was, this is how we have come up with a way to technically meet the requirements, and we can do all this because it technically might meet the requirements, but the reality is that the plan that he's put forward would dramatically change the character of this subdivision, and not for the better. I also noticed when you all asked him questions about what exactly are you going to put there, what kind of houses are you going to build, what are those open areas going to be, he didn't answer any of those questions. What he did tell you was that he wanted to put as many lots as he could in the remaining areas so that he could get as much money out of this development as possible. But what he's really proposing is just that, a bunch of very, very small lots. Regardless of the open area, the lots themselves are very small, so there's tremendous concern about what the impervious surface would be, how that would affect the drainage. When this plan was originally proposed back in 2002, 2003, we were living in quite a different world than we are now in terms of water and drainage. There's been a tremendous amount of development all over New Bern, both commercially and residentially, and we really do, I would urge you to really take some pause and think about how adding 102 more homes and the impervious surface that goes along with that would impact the drainage in this area. And you've heard several people talk about how there are already significant problems during major rain events with respect to the drainage. As for the traffic in and out, there really ought to be a real traffic study. And I would urge that the board would order a traffic study, order the developer to make a real traffic study. What he did was he had his administrative assistant go out to the neighborhood one day for an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon and count cars. That is not a traffic study. That's one person's opinion or observation on a very limited basis of what traffic there might be on one day. When I drove around the subdivision this afternoon, before I came over here, what really struck me was these areas where the new phases are going in really are right in the existing subdivision. We're not talking about a situation where you've got an existing development and then there's a little land over here for a new phase, and so if we put something over there that is different, and maybe the lot sizes are smaller or the houses look different, it doesn't really matter because it's kind of obvious that it's sort of a different part of the neighborhood or a different neighborhood. These phases 5, 6, and 7 are really in the existing area of Belle Oaks. They're areas right now that aren't developed. They're really not very big. There are some wooded areas that, are going to be developed at some point, and I think everybody here knew that those areas would be developed at some point. But it would really upset the character of the community to start building houses on significantly smaller lots that look significantly different than the houses that are already there. With respect to the common areas, I do want to stress that when he talks about common areas, what he's really talking about is area that he's required to set aside for buffers and drainage. There isn't really any usable common areas, and so although it might technically meet the requirements of common areas, it is of no benefit to the homeowners in the community. And so again, to cram all those very small lots in there really doesn't change the neighborhood for the better. It does for the worst. So I would urge that you would require this developer, I would urge that you would deny this request for approval and ask this developer to go back to the drawing board and develop a plan that maintains and preserves the very good character of the Belle Oaks subdivision, taking into consideration all of the concerns that these folks have about traffic, about common areas, about drainage, and about the general character of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more members of the public that would like to speak against adopting the proposal as presented? Having seen none, at this point I would like to return the discussion to the board. And Jeff, I just have a question for you. Do you know how many homes presently are built already in that neighborhood about, approximately?
I do not.
60-some?
Margie
probably knows.
64.
Travis.
60 number. Yeah.
64, I believe, with 80 in that.
Still
Total
more
number of
lots
80, yeah.
And
80 with
they're, and they're
some
proposing about 102 more, which,
80 approved, 102 added.
you know, and the traffic studies they've done already, that's more linear, isn't it? So if you double the houses, you double the
But
traffic.
Traffic, to me, in the one in, one out, there are a lot of subdivisions like that.
Yeah.
Look at Fairfield Harbor.
Fair Harbor is a
That's one,
disaster,
and
and
it's
that's outside of,
I know,
Newbern.
but still, when you're talking about in and out and other areas, there is only one, and I understand the concern. My
Pamlico County is practically that way too, it's only 55 is in that.
question I have, Jeff.
Yes, ma'am.
The existing that we already have in there, if the phase 7 is gonna be a R8, and it looks like phase 6, what is the phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 right now? Is that a R6?
R10.
R10?
It's our 10S.
R10, yes.
Our 10S.
R10S.
So R10S, are you, Margie, you done? I didn't mean to
Yes.
cut you off. R10S, it's a minimum, but 10,000 square feet,
With, and single-family requirement.
single-family requirement.
Detached, single-family detached.
Right, and 8, I believe, is, 8,000 square feet. But what is the thing I read on our maps, zoning maps? It says one unit has to be 8,000 square feet, the other ones have to be minimum of 4,000? So that means you can have one bigger lot, like one of these lots that we see like this, and the rest can be really very small, like, well under a quarter acre?
Each one.
Very, very small. Not keeping in line with what they have.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, is that correct, what the one lady said, I believe this lady, I'm sorry if I'm incorrect in this, 0.13 acres? That's what some of these lots are gonna be? That's about the size that we have in Fairways section of Greenbrier. And Greenbrier is a subdivision of 641 homes or so. We have 2 entrances too, and one of them is shared with the community college. So that works, but this might be an area where you have more children than Greenbrier has.
Much smaller.
Right. So, I didn't help the issue any with my questions, I don't think.
No, I heard testimony tonight that despite the flood maps, that much of the property is experiencing flooding. And that has me concerned. Jeff, Raymond, what are your thoughts about the flooding that we heard today?
Well, as a design professional, what we have to look at are the flood mapping. That's what flood insurance is based on, where the requirement, whether you have to have it or not. And, the reason I asked the question about the 500-year flood plain, well, that's the 0.2% annual chance of flooding, is there's no base flood elevation for that, and there's no flood insurance requirement for that if you have a lien on your property. I understand we had flooding. We had flooding in a lot of places. That flooding in my neighborhood. But I guess the reason I asked that question was to be clear if any of the parcels that are indicated on this plan unit development, regardless of the size, just in general, any of the parcels that are indicated were in the 500-year floodplain for the new mapping. And the indication from Mr. Avolis was no, they're not. The elevation is significantly higher. So that was the only reason I asked the
We
question.
also heard testimony that the only egress was largely washed out.
Yep.
And we're talking about significantly, as this development continues to its final fruition, it's going to have many, many more homes and assumably larger population and ergo more traffic.
Yep, I did hear that.
I also that the comment about impact on New Bern as far as the schools, and we need to get that committee back up and running.
I agree with that. Does anybody else have any more discussion before we consider approving or denying the applicant's request?
The common area, the common space, or common area and open space, I think they're really two different things. The open space really is a requirement by ordinance, right?
Correct. Yeah, any single-family residential development greater than 31 lots has to provide at least 5%.
Right, but it doesn't necessarily mean
usable open space.
Right, but it doesn't necessarily.
And usable open space can be a
could be a forest.
Well, no, can't be a forest, but it has to be some kind of maybe some trees, but not a forest, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
5%.
5%, yeah.
Not necessarily.
Oh, yeah,
5%.
yeah, we have 13 acres or so. The 5% is about a little over an acre.
But it's not usable.
It is usable, yes, ma'am.
Usable for what?
Grass,
Grass.
can't be retention, can't be wetlands. Hey, you know, hey, 7 years ago, you used to be able to use wetlands and retention for open
Yeah,
space,
yeah, no more.
but we changed that. So, we're correct.
But doesn't necessarily mean you can plate it.
Well, it has to be usable, so it can't be wet.
Mhm.
You know, it's usually a green grass field.
But the BMP, the lake, that's considered part of it.
A lake would be, like a retention pond could be considered usable if the developer constructed docks, piers, something to use the lake. For fishing or boating or something like that, that could be considered usable. But in general, just clear it and sod it and it's considered usable as long as it's relatively dry.
Is there any further discussion? At this point, the chair would like to entertain a motion to approve the applicant's request. Do we have a motion? At this point, the chair would like to hear a motion to deny the applicant's request to approve the application as presented. Do we have a motion to deny the request?
I would like to make a motion to deny the request.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Point of clarification.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
From the ordinance, if the Planning and Zoning Board should disapprove the general plan, the reasons for such action shall be noted in the minutes and recommendations made on the basis of which the proposed subdivision could be approved.
I'm afraid that this thing meets all the requirements.
Okay, well, I do see returning the discussion to the board.
Whether we like it or not.
Is everybody comfortable with the traffic data that was presented to us?
No.
No, I'm not.
Okay, so we would request the developer to provide a traffic study that would meet the approval of the planning department. I am not satisfied with the flooding the way it was presented as. We had direct testimony, despite the existing flood maps, which we have evidence that it is faulted based on the testimony.
Well, the problem with the flooding is that there's a 100-year storm, and then there's floods.
Well, we heard testimony from at least one witness that there has been occasional flooding. And not all of them were 100, 500-year storms. Did you hear the same that I heard, or did I mishear it?
Yeah, he said that his backyard flooded.
Some of the places that they're working.
Yeah.
I would like to see the lots better in unison with what they've already got.
I know, but that's,
But I know it meets the requirements.
It meets the land use.
Yes.
One of the things that we are subjected to is we're supposed to promote, with our planning, harmony in the community. That's one of our charges as a planning and zoning board too, so.
Well, again, I will state that I have trouble with the one entrance and egress. Just the way the land is platted out, it's not like Greenbrier, it's not like Fairfield Harbor. It bottlenecks fairly quickly. And that concerns me as you add more families in there with probably at least 2 cars. You're going to see a huge amount of traffic generated with 102 more homes, plus the ones that are still to be built and the phases that are already there. So I really think that that's something that the Board of Aldermen, when this finally gets to them, needs to look at.
This approval is not subject to the Board of Aldermen.
Right.
The Planning and Zoning Board have the final decision of that.
That is correct.
Jeff, question point. Can this planning board, we can certainly suggest, but can we mandate that they have more than one egress at this point?
The issue becomes where and how.
Wasn't there an attempt already to purchase some land, I hear? Am I hearing that, am I wrong about that?
I'm not sure.
That's a good idea.
A moment.
It's the same thing.
He's talking to the developer right now.
This is M L King, and this is Cypress.
This is not good.
No, this is not. That's back to we're now talking over there where Tractor's Pile.
I was hoping to find
Well,
a
if we
compromise,
could-
but I could not, so.
If we could do this
Proceed.
with asking them for a traffic study, I think then we should do that.
I don't think that's,
I think we could, and then we have to ask for a traffic study.
that's the only way you can stop it.
Do you want to then approve it?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we've
Please.
got a motion on the floor from
There's no
Travis.
second.
And I know there was no second, but Travis has the opportunity to revise his motion and to add the stipulations that Jeff
Have a
was
traffic
talking
study.
about, and I think we should give him the opportunity to do so, and then see if we get a second.
So with that being said, thank you for that. I would ask this, that we possibly come to a compromise here and we table this to do an appropriate traffic study and then move forward from there. Somebody sitting there counting cars for 8 minutes on a rainy day is not a traffic study, and I think the majority of the issues, other than the lot sizes and the land use, boils down to traffic. I know that neighborhood quite well. I'm telling you right now, it is gonna be a bottleneck, and it's gonna be an issue. This right here, this was that road going into Belle Oaks. That's a fact. That's not made up, that's not photoshopped, because I have the same pictures. That road washed out. And there is a potential there for it to be a bottleneck. So I would ask at a minimum that we table this and ask for a legitimate traffic study.
So that's your motion?
That is my motion.
Then I'll second that.
All right, I have a question, a little discussion before we vote on that. Jeff, what are the rules if we table? There's, what's the time frame for?
We need to act within 60 days.
60 days, right. So we could table it, but we'd have to act on it at our next meeting, or it's deemed approved.
Yes, I understand.
Okay, so just making sure we all understand that before we vote on it. And, I'm not sure that there's enough time between now and our next
To
meeting.
get a real traffic
for a traffic study. And so what I feel like what we're setting up for is an approval,
Yeah, like a pocket
which is fine if
road.
that's what we are all thinking we want, or thinking we're wanting to do on this. But I think we'd be better served, rather than tabling, actually acting on it, either disapproving with recommendations or stipulations, or approving, one of the two. That's my opinion, but we've got a motion and a second, so we can vote on that if you would like to do so.
Okay, a question for staff, please. It appears obvious to me that many members of this board are uncomfortable with the density of the approval for the plan, largely based on traffic and safety concerns. Can we make a recommendation that that the applicant doesn't use as many lots and reduce the number of plots?
Mr. Black, you could do a couple of different things, right? So we could approve it, we can approve it with conditions, or we can deny. If you deny, your motion should include the reason why, and what actions the developer or owner can take to correct the reason for the denial. So your motion would be motion to deny, to decrease lots in order to decrease traffic, something like that. However the board feels, but that's what your motion would have to be.
And
if it's lots, if it's density, there's a lot of different things there. Is it traffic? That has to be articulated in your motion.
Would it be reasonable to articulate that due to the number of lots that are being proposed, it will impact the traffic so that it would negatively impact the community? Is that reasonable language?
I think you could stop at traffic.
So we could say we wish to reduce the number of lots on account of traffic concerns.
Correct.
Okay, so if somebody wants to introduce...
We got a motion.
We've got a motion and a second on the floor.
Yeah,
Got to vote on this motion first.
okay.
You got a first and a second.
Okay, we have a first and a second on the first motion.
Restate the motion.
Yeah, restate the motion, please.
The first issue was to table this until an appropriate traffic study was done based on the density issue that's being proposed with the development.
Okay, and before we have the advice from Raymond, as per the rules, it's kind of opposite of a pocket veto. If we do not vote on it, then it automatically passes within 60, at the end of 60 days. That's
Well,
my opinion.
So we'd have to act next time, period.
We would have to act next time period, and we
Yeah.
probably won't have
Correct.
a
We'll have
viable,
traffic study.
we wouldn't have a viable
Well,
traffic.
let's go ahead and take the vote.
Okay. All those in favor of adopting the resolution to table the motion pending the traffic study, say aye. All those opposed?
Hold on. Can we get a roll?
I'd say let's do a roll call, if you don't mind, Don.
Okay. Can we have a roll call, please?
Who was the second on that as well?
Sonny?
Marshall Ballard,
I agree.
Yes?
Yes.
Raymond Layson,
No.
Marcus Simmons,
Not here.
Pat Dorsey,
No.
Don Black,
No.
Ann Shout,
No.
Karen Beatty, Sonny Aluzzo,
No,
Margie Dunn,
Yes.
Travis Oakley.
Yes.
Fine.
The chair would like to entertain a motion to proceed.
Well, let's, Nadia, tell me what
5-3 motion fails.
Okay, thank you.
Again, the chair would like to entertain a motion to proceed.
so I'm going to move that we deny this with the stipulation, and the reason is that we need a traffic count, or our concerns as to traffic. Can I put into this motion that we would like to see the lots sizes changed to alter the traffic?
Yes.
So you want the lot size increased?
Increase.
Okay.
Which would reduce the number of lots.
Reduced.
I'm sorry, what?
We want,
He can increase the lot sizes and not change the lot numbers. Okay, so he can still increase lot size
Mhm.
and still keep the same
But you want
amount
to
of
reduce
lots.
the
So
number.
your concern, Sonny,
Which-
is
which-
the number of lots,
Lowering the,
right?
lowering the amount of the lot, lowering the amount of lots.
and the reason for that would be because of the traffic.
For traffic's concerns.
Okay, so can we state it a little bit cleaner for the record, please?
I move that we deny this with the stipulation that the lot sizes are reduced, not being the lot number is reduced for traffic concerns.
Okay. So there is a motion before the board to deny the application on account of too many proposed lots on account of traffic concerns. Do we have a motion? Is it seconded?
I second it.
We have a motion and we have a second. Can we have a roll call, please, Nadia?
Yep. Marshall Ballard,
Yes?
okay. Raymond Layson,
No.
Marcus Simmons, not here. Pat Dorsey,
No.
Don Black,
The motion is to deny, right? I approve the motion to deny.
Anshout,
Yes.
Karen Basie, absent. Sonia Luso,
Yes,
Margie Dunn,
Yes.
Travis Oakley.
Yes.
5-6-2, motion passes.
Jeff, could we also ask for a traffic study before this comes back for us?
Let's close this out and we can discuss how that works.
Okay.
This now brings us to the point of
No, that's already there, sorry.
board member comments.
Yeah, sorry. I can address that, Ann.
I'm sorry, what?
I can address your question now. So I guess just to be clear,
Yes, board member comments, you can't move it back
Yeah.
up.
we can, the only other time I remember the city engaging in a traffic study was for the Thurman Road, Airport Road intersection during initial Hardy Farm stages, before I got here. So that was the city paid for a consultant to do that. We have no mechanism in the code to require a developer to do so. Some of the larger ones do it themselves, just so they understand what's going on. DOT will require that if they're looking into DOT roads. So the request would be for the Board of Aldermen to allocate funds to do a traffic study on this segment.
No. Could we require the developer to have a traffic study on his own? No. Okay, so it'd have to go through the Board of Aldermen.
Correct.
Well, yeah, it would have to be Board of Aldermen setting aside funds to pay for the traffic study.
Yes.
The city would prefer a
They
third
didn't
party.
go for it.
there's no point.
Well, I mean, that's just the rules.
I would like to comment that I'm very impressed with all the work Raymond Layton has done on behalf of the short-term rentals and bed and breakfast. He's been working at burning the midnight oil on our behalf. Thank you, Raymond.
Certainly.
And I also want to thank Ann Shout's leadership on the committee. She has also been burning the midnight oil. So if you see these bright lights over New Bern, these are the two reasons.
Is that us burning out?
Maybe.
That can happen too.
Maybe.
On top of that, there's been some discussion about revisiting the roads and the circles, cul-de-sacs that I've been receiving tonight that I know Jeff has worked on a long time. And I've also heard some comments that they are concerned about what I was calling an audit of public services that we have, whether it be water, sewer, and whatnot. And I know you've been working behind the scene trying to gather that data, and my feelings we're basically at a standstill until we know what some of that data is. And I don't know when you're going to be able to assemble some of that to make it worthwhile. And I don't mean to be putting you on the spot, but
I'll have
such
to
is
burn
life.
some of Ann's and Raymond's midnight oil, right?
Okay.
To loan me some.
Or you can force them to eat anchovies too.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any other public comments? Any other comments from members of the board here?
I'd like to know, Jeff, if we can start up the impact committee,
Well, that's
again.
what I think what the chair was just speaking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, can we start as soon, is what I'm asking.
I would say yes.
Okay.
Aren't you excited?
I know.
Don't I look it?
I
can feel it.
You're going to take residence in your office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad thing about it is it has to be done.
Any
If
other?
we don't, we're remiss.
Any other comments from members of this board?
Did you say a while ago, if he increased the sizes of these lots, it could still be the same number of lots?
Quite possible, yes, absolutely.
So making the lots bigger doesn't do anything to lessen.
There will obviously come a point where, yes, that is true, but if he makes them deeper, provides
There's
more.
not so much more land you can get there.
No, but you're talking about wider, he's talking about deeper.
Yeah.
Well, I think the key, Margie, is that the lot sizes are already larger than are required in the planned unit development. So you could still make them larger within those confines but doesn't solve the problems that we've been talking about.
Yeah,
So
well, I
that's-
just wanted to be,
That's-
I'm not positive if that would be true, but
No, but it's possible.
intuitively.
I wouldn't be surprised, to me,
Yeah.
just knowing what I know about doing these sort of things.
Okay.
At this point, the chair would like to entertain a motion to close the meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion. It is seconded. Raymond, do you wish a roll call on this?
Negative. But thanks for asking.
My pleasure. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the meeting is adjourned.